So there's growing concern of Iran's ballistic missile range after the regime launched an attack targeting Diego Garcia, a key U.S. and U.K. military base in the Indian Ocean, nearly 2,500 miles from Iran. Now Prime Minister Netanyahu is warning other countries they could be targeted next.
If you want proof that Iran endangers the entire world, the last 48 hours have given it. They have now the capacity to reach deep into Europe. They already have fired on a European country. Cyprus. They are putting everyone in their sights.
All right, we got Joey Jones at the touchstring to break down Iran's ballistic missile capabilities. All right, Joey, walk us through the range of their missiles.
Yeah, so they've been building missiles for a while. Really what we're going to focus on today is what I call the K4, because I can't say the K word. It's very long and it's hard to say. But basically, the last missile that they told us about was in 2023, the K4. And we thought its range was about, I think it was right at 2,000 kilometers. So not very far. And they even went so far as to say that, listen, we're not trying to go very far because we don't want the world to feel threatened by us. So here's Iran, and you can start to see the miles, which kind of roughly translate. But right here is what I want you to focus on, 2,500 miles. That's this outer ring here, right inside of it, just about 2,000 miles. Right, this is Diego Garcia. That's double the distance that we thought they could fire. So this K4 missile being the furthest that we know about, we're going to go ahead and move to the next slide. This K4 missile being the furthest that we know about, just went twice as far, or we think this is the one they used. The big question here is we don't know what they used, and that's something we'll talk about in a second.
Well, interesting, Joey. The question really for me is, like, how do they actually launch them? How do they launch these things?
Yeah, so what's really cool, I've got a couple of pictures here that I want to show you. So they're zoomed in, so it's hard to see, but this is essentially a tractor and trailer. This is a truck with a trailer bed on it, with a missile on it. As you'll see, it's being raised. It's at about a 45-degree angle there. So what they do is this is mobile. So the word they use for it is called the Transporter Erector Launcher, the TEL. So this is what's really amazing. Well, this is what's really difficult about this. So basically, this trailer and that truck can drive out into the desert. You need another vehicle probably with some radar on it to get the coordinates right. But basically, it's mobile. It can be moved anywhere. The fuel used in the rocket is liquid. It's a little bit limiting on distance, but it's able to be stored and set somewhere for a long time. So this entire capability is about running around and being able to launch these from different places so that we can't just identify targets with intelligence and go after them. They can move. They can move in hours. They can move hundreds of miles overnight. And so it makes it a little bit more difficult. Also, what this does is, this is very big, but there's a Russian version called the 3M54, the export version is called the Club K, that can pretty much fit in a Connex box. So it can go in the back of a tractor and trailer. So if they're adapting that technology, or if they bought it from Russia, you have to assume every tractor and trailer in Iran is potentially an anti-ship missile or something like this.
Joey, you said that we weren't aware that Iran had the capability to launch a missile this far. So what kind of rocket was launched at the Diego Garcia base, and is it different than the ones that we knew that they had? Yeah, so I'm not going to pick on you on nomenclature here, but basically this is a missile. What makes it a missile is that the back half is a rocket. A rocket is a propulsion system. You point it in a direction, that's where it goes. It's not guided. The rocket has fuel in it, just like the Gemini space rockets, And so what happens is, this actually goes suborbital. I didn't show you on the last screen as easily. There's a screen in a minute I'll show you. This goes hundreds of miles above the surface, not into the atmosphere, above the surface. So the higher you launch it from, theoretically, the higher it goes. It goes hundreds of miles above the surface, and when it does, this part here breaks off, just like we see with space program. And this part here, this is called the reentry vehicle, which encompasses the warhead. There's other words for it. And what happens is when it goes exo-atmospheric, gravity's not as big of a deal, this breaks off. And what we believe, because they're not just telling us, is that this warhead, this reentry vehicle, exo-atmospheric, has thrusters on it that orient it towards its target, and then it lets gravity do its job, and it comes back down. So the reason why that's important is what we know about this specific rocket, or
this specific missile, which is the best one that we know they have, the K4, is that this is liquid fuel, which limits them a little bit on distance, but allows them to store it. And it's a single stage, which means once this burns up, that's as far as it goes. What we're trying to find out now, or what probably people other than me know, is if they added a second stage in here to get it further, or if it's actually a completely different reentry vehicle that has some sort of exo-atmospheric thrust in itself. We're not really sure how they got so far because of what we know about its motor. They call that a rocket motor. So that's what we're trying to figure out. Another thing is that Israel is incredibly tight-lipped with their post-blast analysis, their threat analysis after the fact. So when they get hit with these missiles, they don't always share that information with anyone, to include us. Hopefully this landing near Diego Garcia, we are recovering that and we're getting that information. It's not that Israel's a bad partner, it's that that's how they're able to keep things covert, because as you can see, our own Pentagon didn't want to share things with other allies either. So that's just kind of part of it.
So, Joey, you kind of already walked us through how the ballistic missile works, and we appreciate that because we hear all these things, and, you know, civilians hear rocket, we hear missile, we hear all these different types, and sometimes it's hard for us to decipher which is which and what that means for us. I want to go back because you already explained kind of how it works. Can you go through the ballistic missile stages that you have on that screen there so that we can really conceptualize this?
Yeah, so I'm not able to draw on this screen, or I would add a little bit in here, but I want you to suspend your disbelief, use your imagination, because I'm going to teach you about how we intercept these. When they are launched, and that's what this is showing here, they actually go exo-atmospheric. So they go, I mean, this shows 500 to 1,000 miles. It depends on the missile. The missile we're talking about, we thought was like 150 to 500. So if it goes that far up, what have they done? One thing they could have done was just lighten the weight of the warhead on it and gotten more altitude that way. We just don't know yet if they actually have a better missile or if they modified this missile to where it has less of a warhead on it but could go further. So once it gets exo-atmospheric, then it breaks away. The rocket motor goes away. A couple other things happen that allows the reentry vehicle or the warhead, depending on what it is, to orient itself exo-atmospheric, and I know I've said that a lot, but I don't know a better word, a little bit further away from gravity and air pressure, and then it starts its descent back down. At this point here, it's locked on to its target, and it's coming back down. The reason why that is important is it's like artillery. You decide where it's going down here. It can adjust itself a little bit up here, but it can't completely change where it's going up here. When it starts reentry, here it is. What they're saying is that this reentry vehicle has broken down into a warhead at this stage. At that point, that's when our THAAD system uses radar, generally where we think we're going to get hit, and that might be the first time we know that that missile is headed towards us. So it's this part here, when it's reaching Mach 8. It's already 8 to 16, so it's supersonic. And that's how much time we have to lock onto it with the radar and send THAAD towards it. And basically what it's doing is the computer is calculating, well, if it's here now and it's moving that fast, it'll be there in a few seconds. So we may be intercepting it way down here. Look at that big arc. And this is hundreds of miles high and thousands of miles wide. And in all of this arc, it's this section down here most of the time where we're finding it and intercepting it. One thing I know is that some of our THAAD radars have been hit. You take those radars out, now you've got a hole in your dome, in your gold, whatever you want to call it. And so the reason why that's important is some of these are guided in ways that one day we talk about hypersonic guided missiles. This point and shoot method may not work. So this is the evolution of defense. So when President Trump says he wants to raise all this money to put a golden dome over the United States, it's advanced technology from what we're doing now with the THAAD, something other than radar. If these things get the ability to change their target, change elevation and descent, become basically an unmanned aircraft on their way down, the ability to intercept them or take them out just gets so much more difficult. So the advancement of their missiles, that's a big deal. And when President Trump says, hey, they're advancing their missile program, he doesn't just mean they can point and shoot further. He means what they're able to do once it's launched that makes it harder for us to defeat it. That is a big deal. So I'm going to wrap it up this way. It's not as big of a deal that it went so far. It's how did it go so far and what happened along the way that we need to study and find out. If they actually have missiles that we're not aware of, or that we don't know we're aware of, that only our IC knew about, maybe even a certain section of it, our intel community, then there might be a lot more justification for this war than we know or will know for a while.
Joey, thank you as always for breaking that down for us. I'm going to bring it back to the table as you make your way back over here. All right, Jason, that was obviously excellent for us to get that knowledge from Joey and break all this down, because we hear all these terms and these weapons and a lot of us don't really know what that all means, what it means to us and what it means to our allies. But, you know, I think that this also makes the discussion right now that we're having with Democrats and between all of us of whether it was an imminent threat, whether Iran was actually a threat, or whether this was a war of choice, as Democrats keep repeating over and over and over again. But to Joey's point, as he expertly laid out over at the touchscreen there, it would seem as though maybe they had more capabilities than we knew, or maybe than many wanted to believe.
Yeah, these armchair politicians don't see the most classified intelligence. They do that to keep it as safe as possible. Three things come to mind. Number one, there was a clear and present danger. There clearly was. The president does this reluctantly. He is the president of peace. This is what he wants. It's peace through strength. And it's making sure that we hit them before they hit us. Number two, thank goodness that Donald Trump had the foresight to actually implement the Space Force. There is a war that is going on in space. We don't see it. Nobody's taking selfies with their Apple phones. The Space Force is vital to what we're doing into the future. And if you don't understand fully what's going on with the Chinese, the Russians, the Israelis, and others, then you are blind to what is really going on in the world. And the last thing is, we have some amazing technology that was put in place previously. For instance, the middle of Romania, we have what's called Aegis Ashore. This is literally a Navy ship they put right smack dab in the middle, foreshadowing the idea that, you know what, the Iranians may want to try to hit somebody in Europe. And we have this type of technology on the ground to help defend Europe and American assets.
So all that to say, there's a lot more that goes on.
Yes.
You know, Kaylee, I was thinking the other day when I was filling up gas, boy, I hope this is over soon, right? And I texted my parents, ouch, you know, gas, it's hurting a little bit. And my parents responded, but nuclear, threat from Iran is probably more expensive in the long run. And, it's important to conceptualize that, because as Joey laid out and as Jason emphasized there, the capabilities that they have or that they could create, that is an imminent threat to us, to our allies. And, as we're talking about this ultimatum from President Trump, 48 hours, that's ticking on down. We don't know how long he'll actually give them. But then you've got Iran basically saying, well, we're going to FAFO.
Right, and we know that President Trump does have a political incentive to wrap this up quickly, but he also has a national security priority to get it done, especially as Joey laid out, that they could very well have more than we are even aware of that could be capable of really disastrous work in Europe and even closer to the eastern seaboard. And I think that calculates into President Trump's decision here to hit Iran's power plants, to go after their electrical grid. And it's interesting, I've already seen this from some Democrats and some on the left who are complaining about how this would be an escalation and a violation of international law. To be clear, an international law that allows Iran to shoot missiles at citizens at their neighboring countries but prevents us from doing anything to stop that is not an international law that exists to preserve global safety. That is an international law that exists to cripple the good actors in this world. And what you're seeing now from President Trump is an American force that is unrestrained by that. For a very long time, and I'm sure that Joey can confirm this, we have been operating with one arm tied behind our back. President Trump is not going to allow that to happen anymore. So I do think you are going to see this expedited. You're going to see it wrap up quickly because he is releasing the American forces from that obligation.
Joey, we've heard President Trump say that, this is winding down, and he said everything's pretty much been decimated. They don't really have a leader, and he's gone through all the success up until this point. But now we're talking about these missiles, and we're talking about maybe some capabilities that are a little more extensive than most of us knew of. Do you think that, given that, this is winding down, or what do you think it's going to take to end it?
I don't know. I find it interesting that the administration put out a list, Axios reported a list of concessions they're looking for. I don't know if that's posturing for diplomacy so that Europe understands, hey, we're looking in that direction. I think that there is a chance there are a lot more capabilities still in that country than we know about or can confirm or can locate. And I think that if we're this far along and we're getting that intelligence, we're figuring that out, there are still high value targets, I say keep bombing them.
Real quickly, is this something we can all do from the air, or is a ground force needed? to finish it?
This is what I'll tell you. I'm not going to pretend to be something I'm not. I'm not a general. I didn't go to the war college. I read The Bearman Over the Mountain. I read The Other Side of the Mountain. The Soviets spent a lot of money trying to take Afghanistan with airplanes and bombs, and those airplanes got brought down by relatively cheap, Sidewinder, shoulder-fired missiles or shoulder-fired rockets that we gave them. And so that eventually the Soviets had to give up because it cost them so much money. So right before that, they put in the tanks, but they weren't willing to send dead bodies home to mom and dads. They didn't get out of the tanks. And without any sort of presence, they were never going to take Afghanistan. As long as we understand we're not trying to or able to take Iran or even change its regime, what we're trying to do is neuter it. Then you can do that largely from the air and diplomacy.
Love it. Well, we're going to be talking about it much more through these next wonderful 2 hours and some change.
Yeah.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.